Hello and welcome to this week's F1 edition of the podcast. This is podcast number 2 of 3 coming this week. I have Formula Whatever on to talk, to do a little preseason prediction, talk about Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, and mostly me just be like the world's like grumpiest old man of like, why do we care that he took some photos? And I think we'll do a little bit of our recurring segment of Baldoni Watch at the end of this podcast. But the real crux of it is we're going to be ranking the 21 F1 drivers. And yes, I am saying 21 intentionally. Sorry, Jack Doohan. We're going to be doing a ranking of how good we think they are.
No, how good we think they're going to be this year.
Okay, yes, but like those things are fundamental. Like, it's not a standings prediction, but it's a, it's a sort of it's a wheel knowledge assessment.
How good they are is more holistic. How good they're going to be in this specific season, I feel like, is much more nebulous. Otherwise, Lewis would just be the undisputed number one. You know what I mean? If we were looking at,
okay, whatever. We'll argue about Lewis
globally in terms of talent.
Okay, how good he is at this moment in time.
Okay, yes.
Whatever. Whatever. It's a 2025. It's a 2025 like driver rankings thing. It's mostly an exercise to like talk about the season, talk about what we expect, talk about what teammate pairings we think are going to be, like who's going to come out on top in a lot of those. Because obviously, if I have to pick a team at random, if I have Gabe Bortoletto fairly low and Nico Hülkenberg sort of high-ish, like that tells you who I think is going to be better at stake this year, right? But yeah, we're going to go through the 21 drivers. We've included Franco Colapinto, given we weren't able to talk about this because we recorded your last appearance before Flavio Briatore went full Flavio Briatore, but
they could never
make the news that by the time we get to Imola, our prince Jack Doohan might be fired.
Rip. I feel bad for Jack Doohan. It is unfortunate the situation that he is in. However, I understand why Flavio is enamored with Franco Colapinto. I too am enamored.
So can I keep it a buck, despite the fact that I am the world's number one Jack Doohan lover, because that man is hot as fuck?
Yes.
Nothing in Jack Doohan's junior career suggested that he deserves an F1 seat, and nothing in Abu Dhabi suggested he deserves an F1 seat. And frankly, I really don't think this is I don't really think this is like I think this is, they picked Doohan in a moment of like, we just need to get Esteban the fuck out and we don't have a better option, and they picked him, and they then got a better available option. And this is actually the kind of move that F1 teams need to make significantly more of, not less of, because it's the same thing with like head coaches who are very clearly not going to be good enough. Like the move is to fire them the moment that you realize that, not give them an extra 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to waste away, because it's just not going to work. The moment that you kind of realize that you screwed up, the right moment to have done it, the right moment to have fixed this was the day before you assigned Jack Doohan. The next best day to do it is today, and that's clearly what they did with Colapinto. They, it's the right move. Colapinto has proven himself to be, rapid, or at least have the capacity for rapidity. He's got to clean shit up, but of course he's got to clean shit up. Like, that's good. That's the way it works with young drivers. But as we say all the time, you would actually much rather fast but can crash than sort of like plodding mediocrity. And Jack Doohan kind of has like plodding mediocrity written all over him. And I'd much rather Franco, because you can tune out the crashes much easier than you can make Jack Doohan faster.
Yeah, I don't know like basically anything about Jack Doohan, but my opinion on him has always been that if he was a top caliber talent, like he would have gotten a seat by then. And the thing is, I feel like they also wanted to put him in that seat because at a certain point you have to validate your young driver program if you want to continue attracting talent. But then when the prospect of someone like Franco comes along, who, I mean, we don't really know, we have a very small sample size, but he certainly has the perspective of being someone who is quite good, you know what I mean? And marketable. And if he finds success with your team, he could be a great asset to the team in a way that if they felt Jack Doohan had the potential to outperform an Esteban, then like he would have been in that seat or when Esteban originally came, you know what I mean? Well, I actually don't know what the timing of it all is, but like Jack Doohan's been in that simulator forever. You know what I mean? Like they know how fast he is. I don't, but I understand wanting to take a risk. The timing of it is super unfortunate. And it is kind of like this whole like giving him 6 races thing. It's like, what's the point? And like, it is cruel to give him it and snatch it away. But then again, it's like, okay, but if you want to do this, what if he goes out and absolutely nails it in the first 6 races, does something crazy, wins a race? Not that I think that that's going to happen, but like, I guess you just don't do it. But like, I just feel like you're starting off the relationship on a very bad foot.
But the thing is, that would be what we call the definition of a good problem to have.
Well, yeah,
right?
that is.
Like
That's
that
true.
is like if Jack Doohan just comes out and kicks Gasly's ass the first 6 races of the season, points or podiums or even like good hauls of points, right? I don't, depending on how good the Alpine is. Like that's a great problem to have. That's a fantastic problem to have. But I don't know. I feel like Kamala Harris being installed as president next week is about as likely as that happening. So,
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I think that if that was going to happen, he
wouldn't have done 2 seasons of F2 and then been given a reserve driver job and only basically been hired because they needed to announce somebody relatively soon after the Esteban thing happened at Monaco.
Right. Basically, yes, exactly. And I know that that's
we can't have spent all of this goddamn time complaining that Red Bull isn't trying Checo and we're just leaving all of these drivers in for too long and we've got like why is Zhou getting 3 seasons and yada 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 and then be mad that we finally have a little bit of ruthless chaos.
But the thing is, like, people that were complaining about Checo are stupid because Red Bull had no better option or no clear better option. I think they all could have been better, but they also
monkey driving that car would have been a better option than Checo.
That's not true though, because it's not like I don't think it would like I don't think Liam Lawson's going to fare any better than Checo. I mean, yes, there's something to be said. Like the Q1
will go out in Q1 like 4 out of 6 weeks in a row. You are underestimating how fucking terrible Checo was in both 2013 and 20. Fucking Logan Sargent has outqualified Checo like 6 or 7 times.
Yes, but if
Logan fucking Sargent.
Wait, yes, but once again, if Red Bull, it's Christian Horner and Helmut Marko. Do you think that if they had a better, a clear better option, they would not, that their times were faster than his in the simulator, that they wouldn't put them in? It's not like, I just don't think that.
Maybe Rick sucking did really hurt them, yes.
Right. Like that was clearly the ploy. And then like that didn't work out. But I also agree that it's like, there's also clearly some great political back and forth going on behind the scenes. And that seat is one of the many things that like hangs in the balance, quote unquote. But allegedly, Christian Horner, according to the rumors, not that we really know, but allegedly Christian Horner won that, and he was backing Danny Rick, and Max and Helmet were backing Checo. And also, if you're Red Bull in this situation, people are fleeing this team like rats, okay? Your number one job is to keep Max Verstappen. So if Max leaves, they're fucked. So
I think that is how you square the circle of Horner wanted Danny Rick, Helmet wanted Liam Lawson, or at the very least has been a Liam Lawson guy. I think Checo was the compromise candidate through the 2024 season, which is to say that when Horner basically realized that he didn't have the leverage to force Danny Rick through, they were like, Checo becomes the compromise. But I think the thing that we always have to remember with the Red Bull power struggle is that Helmet is viewed as a sort of father figure-esque to Max Verstappen. You know, father figure in a sporting context to steal what Crofty said about Toto when George won in Brazil, right? Like, Helmet might not have the power, but he does have the power because he can get Max to basically do whatever the fuck. Like, he can get Max to say, "Hey, if Helmet leaves, I'm leaving." And so Helmet does have more leverage, even if he quote unquote loses the power struggle.
No, they are all of the Red Bull Golden Boys are very loyal to Helmut Marko, which is kind of crazy. I mean, who knows? But also it's like that, to describe that situation as being like, to criticize that from because I think that the criticism of teams keeping mediocre second drivers in the seat is, and it's, to say mediocre, we have to understand that we're speaking in the context of the very front of the Formula One grid, okay? All of these drivers are good, but they're not great. You know what I mean? And they're never going to, or keeping a driver there purposely because they're never going to challenge their teammate who is the one you really want to succeed. Those fingers should be pointed directly at Valtteri Bottas. I think that to ignore the wider context of what was going on at Red Bull and the fact that there wasn't a super clear, viable replacement and all of the shenanigans going on, like, that wasn't the reason that Checo continued to slide. You know what I mean?
Sorry, that's true. I was muted. That's true. I think the other thing is that Valtteri, hilariously, is kind of been an example of both of the problems with drivers sticking too long, right? Because he both stayed a season too long at Mercedes. George should have been in that seat for 2021, and if George was in that seat, Lewis would have won the title. I will believe this till the day I die.
No,
even with Abu Dhabi 2021, if Valtteri had just come second three more times that season, because he won Turkey, obviously. But if Mercedes had just gotten 3 1-2s, that's it.
But forget about beating Max, because that is a feat we all know Valtteri Bottas is not capable of. But to be fair to...
But George Russell could have beaten him 4 times in a season.
Yes, that's the thing. It's like... But I also think that George Russell is of a caliber, not with Lewis maybe, but with, like, at that point in time, but with Nico certainly, or but like he would have. Yes, I agree that he is capable of beating Max, but
and he would have been in a better position.
That's the thing.
To do to Max what Checo, of course, did to Lewis in Abu Dhabi.
He didn't even need to be second. He didn't need to beat Max. All he had to be was third or fourth. He didn't even need to beat Checo. He just had to be not stuck back in the pack in fucking P45, and Max would not have been able to pick.
Yep. Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Like, Valtteri does not get enough slander. But also, like, I'm so glad Valtteri's off the grid this year. He's just not good enough. Him taking up a seat at stake for the last 2 years or 3 years. It was just like, okay, and
I know Joe beat
anybody enjoying this?
I know Joe beat him this year, but like, whatever. I don't care about stake, but I disagree that whatever about Valtteri, like that's Toto's decision because Toto's goal is to win a driver's championship. Ultimately, like you can say they care about the constructors more, maybe they care about them equally, but in terms of that season and how intense it was, Toto's decision, or we don't know, because what's interesting is that I think that Lewis was also really pushing for Valtteri behind the scenes. Like, we don't know that for sure. Maybe he wasn't involved at all. But there are a lot of people who think that Toto wanted to bring George up, and it was Lewis that was like, no, I want Valtteri, like, out of loyalty to him, which, fine. Like, once again, like Max, like, Lewis is in the position to dictate things like that. But whoever made that decision, I mean, it's not one thing. It's never one thing, right? There's a million things that if this was different, like he would have won or whatever would have happened. But that is definitely a major mistake that you can point to when it comes to the performance of the number one car of Mercedes that season.
Toto has said that he was just too cheap to buy out George's contract.
That's crazy to admit. That's crazy.
The one thing about Toto is that he tends to be a fairly blunt interview, which means that he will just say things that you probably shouldn't say. I think there is something in the like German Austrian waters because Nico is also similarly a blunt interview, and I mean that as a compliment in both cases.
No,
but like they just don't tiptoe around shit. They don't refer to like, oh, there were considerations that we did. They're just like, no, Claire Williams locked him into a really good contract and we didn't want to pay the buyout.
I mean, respect to him for admitting to making a mistake, even if he doesn't personally consider it one.
And respect to Claire Williams for utterly fucking Mercedes.
Right, literally. But like, I respect for the honesty, but I personally would not fess up to fucking up that bad because
I'd take that shit to the grave.
Like that was one of like a dozen things maybe that like you could have changed to sway it in Lewis's direction.
It's really remarkable the number of things that if you just tweak one part of it, if Lewis doesn't lock up in Baku, if the crash obviously doesn't happen in Abu Dhabi, if Michael Massey doesn't be a shit, but like, there's a ton of strategy decisions. If Valtteri was better, like 2021 is so great from a sporting perspective because there are so many moments that, and because when you win or lose a championship that closely, it's the same with an election, right? I remember saying this in 2016, but like everything is theoretically to blame, right? Like Hillary ran a bad campaign and the Comey letter was probably decisive. Like those two things can be true at the same time, right? She didn't go to Wisconsin enough. Well, that probably didn't help. Bernie and sort of like Bernie Holdouts probably were responsible. But again, like all of these things are responsible because you lost 3 states by like 77,000 votes or whatever. So everything's responsible. It's the same way. It's every small decision in 2021 is huge.
I actually think that 2016, it's very simple, and that going to Wisconsin is a metaphor for the fact that we were simply never going to elect someone from New York president in that moment. Like, unfortunately.
Well, you say that as literally they elected a New Yorker.
Well, yes, but Donald Trump, as we know, is like cosplaying as.
No. Donald Trump is now cosplaying as no, he's not even cosplaying as Florida. He's cosplaying as Jerry Seinfeld's dad. Just to say a New York retiree in Florida.
Yes, but unfortunately, being like kind of a dork, and like I mean that as a dork myself, but like, it's just unfortunately she was never going to beat the Coastal Elite allegations. And you're right to point out Donald Trump. It baffles me how he has beaten them, but that just the rules simply do not apply to Donald Trump. I don't know what to tell you.
Should I actually force myself to sit down and watch the terrible 2020 Hillbilly Elegy movie at some point before JD Vance runs for president in 2028?
I've never watched it.
Yeah, but I am ostensibly a journalist. People call me a journalist and I laugh at it. I'm absolutely not a journalist, but like I ostensibly cover politics.
I would read it.
Oh, that's more work. At least Glenn Close is probably not terrible at delivering. It's like Glenn Close and Ron Howard, like it's probably not terrible. I mean, it is probably objectively crap, but okay, you want to rank some drivers?
I'm ready.
No, well, okay, because you weren't because you thought you completely misunderstood the assignment beforehand. So
specifically, you said we're ranking F1 drivers based on their talent, not where you think they're going to finish this year. So I took that to be like globally them as a racing driver. When we look back in 20 years, how will you rate this how talented will you rate this person?
No, we just did it. We just did a historical examination. Now we're doing 2025 preview content.
This makes sense. So this is based on like the grand narrative, which for some reason in Formula One, we determine how talented and where drivers rank based on truly vibes alone.
So the sort of like half-seated sort of like inspiration for this is like the P1 like 1 to 10 ratings they give every driver. Like that's sort of the base inspiration of like if you're just or the Aramco power rankings that are fucking terrible on a weekly basis.
Every ranking ever is terrible, and everyone gets so mad at it because it's never going to be it's true of F1 drivers, it's true of the rankings people do of Taylor Swift songs, and it's because there is no definitive answer. It's the LeBron MJ conversation. We're having it for the point of having it, and you can definitely be wrong, but you can't ever really be right.
Correct, but it's good content and it's a way to talk about the driver. And I love a gimmick and I love a game and I come from the Bill Simmons school of just gamify fucking everything. Okay.
No, I love a premise. I love a would you rather. I love a thought experiment.
I do. I will unfortunately hold you to that because I do have a non F1 related fuck, marry, kill that I'm going to spring on you at the end of this podcast.
Oh God. Okay.
I know I'm a terrible person.
Now because I'm curious.
No. I'm making you wait.
Okay. So we're gonna do reverse order, right?
Yeah, we're doing this in reverse order. Obviously, this is not a prediction of the standings. This is another because, like in that case, it would just be the top 8 would be, the top 8. The top 4 teams, and that wouldn't be fun. Obviously, feel free to yell at us in the comment section. We're doing 21 because, again, we're doing Jack Doohan and we're also doing Franco Colapinto because we both think Franco's going to be in that seat for a while. And with that, number 21, I should say, Jack Doohan, I'm sorry, you are going to be replaced. Do we really need, we already talked about it? Do we need to talk about him anymore? I assume he's your number 21.
Yes, and I would like to say a moment for the Jack Doohan fans. I know you're out there. I love you, and I'm sorry. I do feel for you, and I feel for him. This is like incredibly sad, given it's his lifelong dream. But unfortunately, I just don't see him. I feel like it's a high bar he needs to meet, and I feel like if he was gonna meet it, he would have probably have already had a seat. I'm sorry.
Yep. Number 20. What do you have?
Lance.
Oh, wow. That's mean.
I'm sorry, but like, come on. And I was a Lance Stroll defender for a while there, okay? Because he did have flashes of brilliance, but like, it's been a little bit too long since those. And it's getting a little bit to the point with his performance that like it's silly.
The counterpoint is that he did do better against Fernando in 2024 than he did in 2023, and he seemed to lock in like a tiny bit more last year.
Listen, I feel bad. I feel this. It's so mean to say that, but like,
I don't know if I haven't maintained. I'm not like significantly off with you,
but like, I just don't see that situation improving.
20, Isaac Hadjar, you really were the bottom of the Red Bull barrel. Congrats on getting a seat. I don't think it's going to last.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I have him a little higher, but
where do you have him? Give your number.
No, we're gonna go in order.
Okay, fine, whatever.
But the thing is, like, with all of the rookies, I'm just kind of like, I don't really know. Like, but there's a couple that I've heard like the hype around, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's generally an okay indicator. But you truly don't know. So, like, who knows? Maybe he could be the next Max Verstappen. But like you said, he was never the number one overall draft pick. But then again, Tom Brady was drafted 200th.
Yeah, okay, cool. Use the one. Who do you have at 19?
Hulkenberg.
Oh, okay. Well,
my explanation for this is I'm a hater. I'm sorry.
I have Hulkenberg 11th.
Disagree.
He was extremely good last year. He was arguably best of the rest last year.
But like,
He consistently beat Kevin Magnussen. He consistently put himself in the points in a Haas car that was fine.
Yeah, he is.
And he even beat Checo like a dozen times.
He is a good he's a good midfield driver, but unfortunately, maybe this is maybe my like manifestation. I don't know why I'm such a Nico Hulkenberg hater. The last time I said this, people really came. I didn't think that the Hulkenberg girlies moved like that, but they do. So I do apologize. But I also think that who's his teammate? Bortoletto?
Yeah. You think Bortoletto is going to beat Hulkenberg? Wow.
I mean, yes. I'm rooting for the rookies. I want them to do well. There's so many of them. I feel like it's refreshing.
I feel like we should also make clear that you spent a hell of a lot more time thinking about the front of this grid than you did the back of the grid.
Yeah, here's the thing. I have a confession. A lot of these people I have no real firm opinion about. So I'm sorry.
I have Bortoletto 19. I mean, he won F2. He's probably Mick Schumacher, but he won F2. So, you know. I'm going to go with my 18 here. Sorry, I have Stroll 18. We've already kind of talked about him. I think he's good. I think he was better last year. He's still fundamentally flawed as a driver. And realistically, if I'm, cost aside, if I'm making an F1 team and I only have these drivers, like I'm not taking him over a lot of the other drivers on the grid. Partially because we know what his upside is, or more importantly, we know what the lack of upside with Stroll is from 2023 when the Aston was really fast. Like, I don't want a driver who can maybe get me 10th. I want a driver who can turn a podium caliber car into podiums, not 7th places.
Yeah. And the crash dock, after doing the crash dock, that was the moment I could no longer defend Lance Stroll because it is kind of crazy. And the same thing with the penalties, you
can't be kind, slow, and also crash happy. It's just unacceptable. Who is your 18?
I unfortunately do not have a number 18, and I am stressed out now because I don't know who I'm missing, but perhaps let's just move on. And whoever I forgot about, I'm sorry, you have to be number 18. Oh, maybe it was no. Okay.
Oh, I love you. I love you.
I don't have 17 either. Who am I missing? Why did I skip 2 numbers? Oh, this is what happens. I was listening to your Canadian. You talk about the Canadian White House that has asbestos, and I was too invested.
Okay, you figure out who we're doing. My 17 is Yuki Tsunoda.
Oh, okay. I have him higher.
What has Yuki actually proven other than being funny and saying that Pierre Gasly has a huge monster that was pressed into his back when they did that AlphaTauri Twister? Is that what the game's called? Twister? Video.
First of all, for that alone, a spot on the grid, they're given, if you're going to be at the back of the grid, you should at least, be bringing something to the picture. And also, I think that Yuki has been, I guess he lost to Pierre, but I don't know.
He got 4-0'd by Liam in 2023. He did beat Liam in 2024.
He beat Liam pretty convincingly at the end of the year.
In 2024, although Liam Lawson literally did go back of the grid to the points at Coda, and Tsunoda was like, why is he ahead of me? And it's just like, because he was half a second a lap faster than you, bitch.
Listen,
I do not like Yuki Tsunoda. I find his shtick to be bullshit, and I feel like for all the people that say, he hasn't gotten the Red Bull seat because of racism or whatever, I feel like part of the reason that his eminent mediocrity is defended is the fact that people don't want to be racist don't want to be seen to be racist toward him.
I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole, but I feel like of the options, I just don't feel like Liam. I don't know. I feel like Yuki he's flirting on the edge of just being solid, but never showing that much breakthrough potential. But
which of Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda knocked Max Verstappen out of qualifying?
I don't have him that high, but I think he'll beat his rookie teammate, and therefore that's basically what he needs to do.
I have him beating Hadjar too, because Hadjar is my number 20. So you don't have it at 17 as well?
No, for some reason. And then I have Bortoletto for 16.
Okay. Do you have any more Bortoletto takes? Oh, how do you feel about the fact that you are cheering for the spawn of Fernando Alonso's management group, aka Satan himself?
Who is with it?
Bortoletto. He's mini Fernando, isn't he?
You know what? I, over the years, have softened to Fernando Alonso.
He's using Sub's number. How do you not hate this guy?
Somebody was always going to use the number. It's not that crazy. It's fine. He's not going to be Seb, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. I have Lawson 16.
True take on him is that I know nothing. I have no opinion.
He won F1. He won F2 last year, but last year's F2 season feels like one of the stupidest F2 seasons in a while. It was truly just is your engine going to blow up roulette? And he had one of the more reliable cars.
Fair enough. I really need to watching F2, but unfortunately,
you refuse to wake up at 6:30.
Yeah, one thing about me is I'm not going to wake up. Also, I don't mean not to complain. It's not, there are people who have real jobs. Not that this is my job, but there's already so much to watch over the course of a weekend. I have a life. You know what I mean? I would like to be able to go to lunch if that's allowed on a Saturday. So unfortunately, adding F2 onto what is already 12 hours of content across the weekend is just not happening.
I have Liam Lawson 16. I assume that he's not significantly higher on your list.
That's definitely who I forgot. So he's P18.
I think he is like the best of a very bad set of options for Red Bull. I think he is going to get bitch slapped by Verstappen, and I really just want him to come out because the photo of him lying on his bed, like chest shirtless and like chest down, it's the gayest thing ever, and it's the most bottom thing ever. So I just need him to break up with his girlfriend and admit the fact that he just wants to get railed, because that is 1,000% what he is.
I disavow those comments, but you know what? Speak your truth. The thing is, unfortunately, that's why I'm like low-key not mad at all about Yuki not getting that Red Bull seat, because I'm like, that organization is in chaos. The car is gonna, maybe it'll be better, maybe it won't. Who really knows? Like, say they do manage to get a handle on it. Unfortunately, if there is any problems, like Max's teammate is like going to be the first person on the chopping block, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, Max is Max, right? And I think that it's very rare that a non-golden boy beats a golden boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it has not happened at Red Bull, I believe. Because Danny Rick beat Seb beat Max, but like, or Danny Rick beat Max, obviously, but like, and then Max beat Danny Rick, but like, that is a lineage of 3 golden boys, like Kvyat, Gasly, Albon, Checo. They never even got close. Even fucking
even you think like, I guess Nico beating Lewis maybe, but even Nico won GP2, won GP3. Like, these were people that were, and obviously he's the son of an F1 driver, so there's automatically going to be like conversation around that. So
Nico, funnily enough, was the original Mercedes golden boy.
Right. And like that,
so like that doesn't even, that Mercedes is a totally different thing.
Right. And like 2 golden boys, that's like Lewis and Nico. Like, it's always, that's why Mercedes will be so interesting this year, because it's 2 golden boys going up against each other. The same thing with Ferrari, you know what I mean? And that's always
somebody is going to claim that Carlos Sainz beating Charles in 2021 is real, but
Carlos was a golden boy. He was cast aside by Red Bull. You know what I mean?
No, but that's what I mean is that you know, the one time a non-golden boy beat a golden boy. But
no, I'm talking
anybody who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about, that Ferrari season, Charles had like the worst luck imaginable and still came within like 5 points and kicked his ass in both quali and race head-to-head.
And like, fair enough. Like, I don't, as much as people may perceive me as a Carlos Sainz hater, I think he's a very good driver. Like, do I think when people say he's better than Charles, I'm like, I need you to be fucking for real with me right now. But I'm not saying that if you're not like a golden boy who's like risen through the ranks as like this prodigy, won all of these things in juniors, you can't eventually go on to win a world championship. Like, it does happen. But when you have that inter-team dynamic, you have to be like equally as fast, like you can be faster than that person. So like, that's rare to happen. That usually golden boys get there for a reason. So for someone to come in and be faster, but what the advantage I think that Mercedes and Ferrari both have to like stave off the 2 golden boy drama is that like when there's an age differential there, for some reason, that is a more tenable situation than when they're peers.
Well, because the thing is, because Antonelli, I think he will be fine if Jordan gets an upgrades first, in a way that Lewis and Nico never would have been okay with one of them getting quote unquote preferential treatment. And I think Lewis knows that Lewis is way more mature than he was a decade ago when he was fighting with Nico. But we'll get to both of those. We will get to both of those situations later on, higher up in the rankings.
It's just, and it's a classic dynamic too of we'll get to it. Sorry, I don't want to go on tangent right now.
No. Well, trust me, we'll get there because trust me, we're going to talk a lot about Seb and Charles as we talk about Lewis and Charles. Like, trust me, I've already penciled in 15 minutes for those comparisons from you. Who's your number 15?
Hajar.
That's way too high.
I'm sorry.
He
I
sucks.
don't know anything about these people. I have
Fine. I have Ocon 15. Do you have a strong Esteban Ocon opinion? I think he loses to Behrman pretty easily. I think Behrman's good.
The other one I forgot. Okay, he can be P17. No, I think Ollie's gonna beat him. So he is, should be down here. I feel like P17 is fine.
Yeah, I'm moving 15. I'm lower on I have the 3 rookies. I have Stroll, Yuki, and then Lawson. I think that's fine for Ocon. I think Ocon at 15 is probably Lawson depends, but I think that's my tier of I actually think you probably quote unquote deserve to be on the grid. And then the bottom 6 are literally you could be replaced by anybody else, and I would not care in the slightest.
I was definitely way too harsh on Nico Hulkenberg, but I don't care. This is my very biased ranking.
Who's your 14?
Pierre.
Jesus fucking Christ. What the fuck?
Franco.
This man put it on the second row in Vegas. This man was in Q3, I think 6 of the last 7 races or something like that. This man got a podium in Brazil. This man was in the points pretty severely in Abu Dhabi. How the fuck?
Because
do you have Pierre Gasly 14th?
I think that Franco is going to come in and absolutely wipe the floor with him and beat him, even though he has 6 less races. You
are absolutely off your fucking rocker.
I stand behind Franco 10 toes down.
Pierre Gasly has gotten podiums in 4 cars.
Okay, but
have you different seasons.
Have you considered
in cars that finished 6th or worse in the constructors?
No, it's not that I don't think Pierre is good. It's just that I'm going all chips in on Franco.
That you would prefer to fuck Franco Colapinto than Pierre Gasly.
Okay, let's not pretend that your opinion on Pierre Gasly is not influenced by whether or not you want to have sex with him. And listen, yes, but none of my other choices have been influenced by who was the hottest. Perhaps he has charmed me, but also I do think he has shown some real promise and potential in a car that was basically falling apart at the seams. And I rate Alex pretty highly. And I just think that, listen, I could be totally wrong. Don't get me wrong. But
Pierre Gasly is better than some of the people that you still have left. This is an unacceptable ranking.
No, it's not that I think that he's necessarily not as good as them overall, but I think that getting beat by Franco in the manner that I believe he will reflect poorly on him.
Jesus Christ. I have Behrman 14. I think Behrman will be good. I think that some of the hype train on Behrman is perhaps overstated by the nature of his passport, and I think the fact that he got beat by Kimi Antonelli pretty comprehensively in F2 is not the world's most inspiring sign.
No.
Also, I think the Behrman, I think we have all were like, oh, it's so cool that Behrman got 7th in a Ferrari. I kind of respectfully think that wasn't as impressive an accomplishment.
No, I think. Okay, now that I'm really looking at this list, please know, listeners at home, that I interpreted the prompt incorrectly. So I did this on the fly, and I have Ollie ranked very high. Some might say ridiculously so. And my defense of this is that I'm just choosing to believe. And also, I don't really rate Esteban that highly. And I think that has to take a step forward again this year because I think that their team principal is good. And if Esteban is rated fairly highly by the F1 media, quote unquote. So I think that Ollie coming in, beating him comprehensively, and if they're in the midfield, everyone's going to be like, wow, look at Haas go, look at Ollie go.
Yeah, because he has a British passport. The British bias on Ollie Behrman is incredible.
I think it's the Ferrari of it all, to be honest.
I think it's the combo of like Charles's reflective glow and the fact that the Ferrari Driver Academy just needs fucking somebody because everybody they produce in Charles sucked.
It's so Luc Fosi pilled. It's so unfortunate, but it's like Hotel California in here. But I am choosing to believe because I just think Ollie has it in him. And while I do think that the hype over the P7 was a bit like in order to get that reaction from myself personally, I would think that like he would need to finish at least right before, like behind Charles. You know what I mean? However, I think for having never driven an F1 car before, to come in, do what you needed to do, and finish P7, it was solid.
He had done the rookie test the year before. Just
okay. Well, Kimi Antonelli fucking binned it in his test. So.
No, Kimi Antonelli binned it in his first FP1. That's a different thing.
That's true. You're right. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I have Antonelli 13th.
What?
I think he'll be good. I think Antonelli will be fine. I think he'll get a couple podiums. I think he might win a race. I think George comprehensively beats the shit out of him. That's my 13.
13. Okay, 13. I have Yuki.
Yeah, okay. We've already done the Yuki debate. How much higher do you have Antonelli than me?
Where are you, Kimi? I have it pretty high, but that's because I think that Mercedes will do well.
But you think he'll be competitive with George?
Competitive enough. I mean, look at what Oscar's gotten away with. You don't have to be, you just have to be, I think he will manage to be right behind George. Yes.
Fair enough. Who's your 12?
Oscar.
Oh, we really disagree on Oscar. Make the case.
Unfortunately, I cannot. There has been nothing to indicate to me that he's going to start beating Lando Norris. So I could not in good conscience rank him any higher.
Did my case for him that he will be better on his weak tracks because this will be the third time he's driven them? Does that not sway you at all?
It is compelling, and I do love that you did that because it's such a me thing to try to figure out. However, I don't know if like I said, yeah, it's not enough to sway me from my stance of like he's been pretty consistent in where he is, like not far off Lando, but it's just, and people are like, well, it's just qualifying, and I'm like, well, but qualifying is like a large part of it. You know what I mean?
Sure. So, but the thing is that like I am willing to give Oscar this season, or at least the beginning of the season.
Once again, like I feel bad because there is nothing I would love more than for Oscar to go out there and beat Lando Norris by a considerable margin.
I don't know. No, I understand. You've made it very clear that you just hate every single Australian, given the way that you treat Mark Webber and now Oscar Piastri.
I don't hate Daniel Ricciardo.
Yes, you do.
No, you don't.
You absolutely do. You absolutely have said that Danny Rick didn't deserve a Red Bull seat, which means that you hate him.
I like him, but like at the end of it, it's like it's not even about deserving. I just don't think that any of them made a clear case for themselves that they were going to do better in Checo's spot. I like Daniel Ricciardo. I was rooting for him, but I can't, as much as I am delusional, I can't sit here and like lie about what I have witnessed before my own eyes.
That doesn't stop you pretending that Ferrari can win things that they have no chance of winning.
Stop.
Just saying.
I believe.
Yeah, but you shouldn't believe. That's the whole fucking you believing is the whole fucking problem. My number 12 is Alex Albon.
I get so much shit for criticizing Ferrari for like every stupid fucking thing that they do.
Yeah, no. Okay. Backpedaling. My number 12 is Alex Albon. I think we are on Alex Albon fraud watch. Really, really sorry to everybody involved here. The fact that Franco came out and was essentially right on the pace with him by race 2 is not good, lads.
How about that Franco Colapinto is just a star?
But Franco Colapinto was in like 6th in F2, okay? Like nobody thought the Franco thing was a good idea until Franco got into an F1 car. Like he was not a golden boy. He was not expected to be a golden boy. He was not. No one was rushing to put that motherfucker in an F1 seat until James Vowles basically decided that he was just done with Logan Sargent.
But sometimes not the golden boy can persevere.
I just think that I think Franco's really good, and the fact that it's 12th and I still haven't said his name is impressive. But like, let's not pretend that Franco is something that he's not.
I think I'm not saying that he is.
What you're saying is that Franco's going to win the WDC despite not racing for 6 races.
Honestly, okay, yes, I would want everybody at home to just take a moment and note that you just compared beating Pierre Gasly to winning the world championship in terms of equal levels of difficulty.
Hey, no one else has managed to fucking beat Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly has been beaten by precisely one person in a season, and it wasn't even technically a full season.
Because he was going to come back against Max
Verstappen. Max Verstappen is the only person to beat him.
I think that Franco as with when anybody enters F1, 6 races is not a large enough sample size to definitively tell you anything about Franco Colapinto. But I think to come in as a relative unknown comparatively and perform the way he did, I also just rate Alex much higher than you. And
I rated Alex extremely highly until I realized that his teammates were Nick Latifi and Logan Sargent.
And I think that there's a chance, and I'm betting on that chance, that he is a shining star.
Okay, that's fine.
And I'm probably going to be wrong. Listen, I don't feel as strongly about this as I feel about someone like a Charles or a Seb or a Lewis that I will defend to the end, because obviously, you know what I mean? I don't know. But he's been in F1 for 6 fucking races, okay?
So Franco's my number 11, so I'm just going to do this now. I think Franco's really good. I think Franco is impressive. I think Franco has the capacity to be a star. I also am aware of the fact that we like him for 2 fucking reasons, okay?
Listen, I'm in love with him, okay?
In the press, and he's hot as hell. And that is making a lot of people glide over the very real problems that we saw with Franco's driving at times last season. And you can choose to just look at those, 9 races as we're just taking the upside. We're just taking the upside. We're just taking the upside, right? We're only looking at the upside. And that's fine. And yes, the Williams was like a Frankenstein, mess of a car by the end of the season. But Colapinto was very good for a few races, and he definitely made a lot of mistakes down the end. And I think that hopefully he irons those out. I'm a big Colapinto fan. I mean, fuck, I think he's hot too. Like, I'm not pretending I'm above that. But but the thing is, I think you are racing to this place of Colapinto is that guy, and I think that you are underestimating the damage that Albon suffered from barely being able to beat him.
Okay, I have prepared some notes in defense of Franco Colapinto.
Save them for when he comes up. Who's your number 11?
Lando. Controversial, I know.
I have him a little bit higher, but
But I think, here's the thing. I think that it's put up or shut up time for Lando Norris. And what happened toward the end of this season was bad. He got he got dog walked by Max Verstappen. There's no other way to put it. Like, I'm sorry. It is harsh and you're like, you're a Lando hater. And like, I acknowledge all of those things. But like, the bottom line is we all know we spent 5 months talking about McLaren had heads and shoulders above the rest of the competition, the better car. And from Zandvoort and beyond, or Imola and beyond, when that was the case, Max Verstappen beat Lando Norris. Like, that's crazy. We were sitting here talking about, he needs 11 whatever points a race, and like we're quibbling over the 7 points in Monza, and being like, can Max Verstappen scrape it to the podium for the end of the year? And you can say Max is a dirty driver, Max this, that, and the other thing. The overtaking off the track argument is ridiculous. That penalty has been enforced that exact same way with that exact same move 100 times over in Formula One. It was never an issue till it was Lando Norris in this position. And Brazil was just the cherry on, like, and but that being said,
focusing on the Coda and the Monza and everything else, just like and what happened in Mexico, just like completely invalidates what you're about to say, which is talk to me about Brazil and talk to me about Vegas, and then you might have an argument, but you don't, because as you're about to walk through, you can't start Brazil on pole and finish sixth.
Yes. And
you can't lose to the guy who started 17th either.
And so I think that McLaren will be at the front this year. However close those I think other people are going to get closer. And I think that Lando Norris will be the clear favorite. And I think that over the course of the season, it's going to be harder and harder to make excuses. What do you believe? Do you believe that this clutch issue, they're saying the reason that he dropped 857 places at the start this season is because there was a clutch issue?
Why did Oscar Piastri steal your stolen Hungary then?
That is also my first question, is that this clutch issue did not impact Oscar.
But also the clutch it's not even like it was a getaway problem in all these cases. It was that he was taking stupid lines, right? Take something like
and it also
take something like Coda, right? Where he just drives, where he gets a good getaway, right? He just basically, him and Max just drive off the road and give Charles the lead. Or take Spa, where he wasn't on pole position, but he just like decided to dip a wheel in the gravel at turn 1 for no reason.
Yeah,
like this is a bullshit narrative.
And I also think that
he's just not aggressive at starts. Like George Russell, who we'll talk about later, higher on this list, like George will just steal your soul at starts. Lando has never done that. Never been that guy.
Right. And unfortunately, and I also think that like part of the reason why I have him this far down is because I do think he's going to become a little bit of a like victim of what the British media did last year. You know what I mean? Because they're building him up. But like, unfortunately, if he gets beaten by if
McLaren have a fastest or co-fastest car and he doesn't win the championship, he will be dismissed as a fraud. And it's the same thing the British media did to George, right? He had that amazing 2022. Because 2023 was pretty mediocre, mostly for reasons that had early, it was just a ton of bad luck. And nobody cared. He was a fraud. It was, did Mercedes make a mistake? Is he massively overrated? And it's like, no, it just turned out it was bad luck and he was fine. But you don't get to. James Hinchcliffe did, I think it was the Red Flags podcast, and he was like, "Well, it was never a title fight. We just typed in a title fight." No. You don't get to say that after the fact, asshat.
It's not even about whether or not he ever truly stood a chance or that is achievable. From Imola onward, Max beat him.
Yep.
No, like, let's have that conversation. You know what I mean? And
it's completely fair. Okay, let's speed run kind of the non-elite drivers. I think you and I both agree that like the top 5 are probably the same top 5 for everybody.
I think so. But wait, sorry, I just have one more thing to say about Lando, which is that the reason I had to put him this far down is not because I think Lando is very good, but unfortunately for him, we are talking about fighting for the championship. Like, this is it. This is the moment where it's put up or shut up. And if even if 2 out of the 3 major teams are within, like, they don't even have to be faster than McLaren, but within striking distance of McLaren, and it varies a lot more track to track, he could finish 3rd. You know what I mean? So that is why
I actually think there's a chance he finishes 4th in the standings at the end of the season. 5th actually in the standings for the end of the season, but we'll get there. So I have Hülkenberg 10, Fernando 9, Sainz 8, Lando 7.
Okay, I have Fernando 10, Carlos. I just feel like it's going to be a forgettable season for Alpine. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Fernando's going to keep. I feel like middle of the pack.
You mean Aston?
Right, that is what I meant. Sorry, but yeah, I think they're just because, like, obviously their whole thing is 2026. Like, I think they're going to coast and be like back to middle of the midfield. And
I think Fernando and Carlos are both in cars that aren't going to be particularly good, but I think they both beat the teams.
This is 9th because I think that Williams will take a step forward, and the British media will be so delighted over it that, like, and both of them, and like Carlos isn't going to like be terrible. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's a very good driver. So yeah, I feel like P9.
And who do you have 8 and 7?
Ollie and Kimi above him.
Yeah, God, you believe the rookies too much.
I do. Well, I think that Kimi will be behind George, but close enough that it'll be fine because he's.
I'm offended by your lack of faith in George's ability to kick his ass. 6, Oscar Piastri. I think Oscar's really good. I think this is the season that, speaking of people who need to put up or shut up, I think this is Oscar's season to put up, and I have faith that he can do it. I think he has gotten progressively better at the tracks that he has driven more often. I think that his bad performances in the flyaway races are going to be solved this year, or at least significantly better. And the thing about Oscar was that he traded a lot of qualifying pace this year for race pace to solve his former problem, which was tire management. Because in 2023, his rookie season, he actually outqualified Lando from summer break on, if you include sprint races. So I think he just needs to find the balance of the right race and quality setups.
Randomly amazing in the sprints.
And the thing is, like, there's just enough quality there that I think he can do it. I believe in him. I don't think Lando's very good. I think the door is open. But that's my Oscar Piastri take. You are a hater. I am a believer. You have Franco 6?
I want him to believe. Yes, I do have Franco 6. I think he's gonna beat Pierre.
Well, I mean, if he beats Pierre, he will be number 6, and he will be the driver of this. Like, he will be everybody like F1 Twitter's hipster driver of the season if he does that.
And listen. I could be wrong. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that's not the case. However,
it's a big swing, and I'm making a bigger one. Pierre Gasly, number 5.
Sometimes but you know what? I respect that, because sometimes in this life you have to take a swing, put money on a parlay, and also I really want that to be the case. So.
Pierre Gasly has put 4 cars in the bottom 5 and has put 4 cars that finished 6th or worse in the WDC on pole position.
No, listen, it's definitely also possible. I mean, I can't really shit on you because I have Franco number 6. So, and
that's the thing. Like, I believe in Gasly. I think he is an incredible midfield driver, and I think he will consistently put that Alpine in places it doesn't belong. You think that's going to be Franco? We'll live to fight another day on that one. Who is your number 4?
Wait,
so sorry. So both of us have the same top 4 drivers in.
No, I have number 5. You haven't done my number 5 yet.
Sorry, I haven't done your number 5. Who's your number 5?
Alex. I think, like I said, I think Williams will take a step forward. I think he's going to beat Carlos, have an amazing season, and good will prevail in the world.
Okay. I mean, I have him lower. I would love to be correct about this. I mean, listen, like I said, Carlos is also very good. So that's one of those pairings where, if I'm being totally honest with you, I have I really couldn't tell you which way it's going to go, because I have the same opinion about both of them, which is that they've shown themselves to be pretty, very solid in the last 2 seasons. So that is going to be really interesting. And therefore I just picked it the way I wanted it to go. Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so we do have the same top 4 drivers. I suspect that you and I are going to. I'm going to guess that you and I have the same 1-2, and I'm going to guess that you and I have the same 3-4. But I don't know if we have the same 3-4 in order, and I don't know if we have the same 1-2 in order.
I'm deeply stressed about this, but I believe in my picks. All right.
So can I guess your 3 and 4?
Yes.
You have George 4, you have Lewis 3.
No. But yes, it's the right people. Reversed. I put Lewis number 4, and listen, I'm so sorry.
Oh wow.
I would like to.
You and I agree on that. Okay.
I would like to personally apologize to Sir Lewis Hamilton and all of the Team LH. Okay. I think that Lewis is going to do really, really well this season, but I'm so sorry, because I am rooting for Charles to win the world championship because he doesn't have one. And as much as I love Lewis and have loved him for a long time, Charles is my number 1. However, and so because of that, I just couldn't in good conscience put him above George when George is going to beat his teammate. And as much as I do not rate Kimi Antonelli on the same level as Charles, I do think Mercedes will be good enough that George will shine. And the hype around Kimi, they are hyping it up as oh, Kimi's the golden boy, George should be nervous. And I think that George will beat him resoundingly. And that will be a real moment of strength for George. So that's why I'm saying this, not because I think that George Russell is ultimately a more talented F1 driver than Lewis Hamilton. That would be an incredibly silly thing to believe. Thank you.
Well, given that George has beaten him to the last race.
Okay, we don't have time to get into this, but that's my Lewis explanation.
I basically agree. I basically agree with all that. I think if somebody wanted to make an impassioned argument for Lewis number 3, I would listen. I think it's an argument that is more rooted in faith that Lewis in a Ferrari will be rejuvenated. I do not think his actual performances in the post 2021 years justify him being above George. I think George has proven himself to be one of the most capable drivers in the sport, and I think I'm very glad that you and I agree on him, which is to say that he is definitively better than your Lando, your Oscar, your, sort of that tier of driver, and not as good as the top 2, who in some order are Max and Charles. Who do you have as number 2?
It's unfortunately when you get to the top 3, it's
you're picking nits. Of course you're picking nits. But the thing is, I can't make a case that George Russell is on Charles Leclerc's level. I can't. I want to believe it, but George will still make the occasional mistake, or will still just have a race, or even just an entire stint of a race where he's just not on the pace. And like the fact that Lewis caught him in Abu Dhabi is kind of a problem. Like George is really fast and really good, and I really, really love George, and I'm very glad he's my driver. I can't say he's with the top two. I can in good faith say that.
Yeah, I think that the reason I honestly have him at number 3 is because I think he's going to be aided by two things. I think that Mercedes will be maybe a step behind the McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull crowd. I mean, who knows? I could be totally wrong about that, but that just kind of was the vibe going into the end of the season. And what I'm hearing about, like, how much they're focusing on the season, ultimately, we don't know. It could be nobody thought McLaren. We were going to be talking about McLaren like this a year ago. You know what I mean? But I think so. But I think they'll be good enough that he can win a couple races. And I think that beating Kimi resoundingly will be kind of a coup for him, because Kimi is sort of Toto's golden child, and he's as good as Max Verstappen and whatever. And I think this will be him really asserting himself as like the leader in Mercedes, and it'll be kind of like a moment for him. So that's why I have him number 3.
So when the P1 boys did a live show in Austin, they did like what'll the 2026 grid be, and they were like, oh, George Russell will be at Audi because no one cares about him. And I'm like, guys, you like the internet might not rate George Russell. F1 teams rate George Russell, and if Max were to leave Red Bull for Mercedes, spoiler alert, George Russell would be the number 1 driver at Red Bull in a heartbeat. Horner would bend over backwards to get him. Like George is great. Who do you have number 2, Charles or Max?
Max.
Motherfucker, we agree.
Oh my gosh. What are the odds? Because I have to manifest Charles winning the world championship.
Okay, I'll do it. I want to do this first because you are a fan of Charles's.
He's if I had to put myself in one camp at the moment, it would be Charles's camp. As much as that pains me, because I've been dreading Charles and Lewis being teammates from the moment it was announced, even though obviously I was so excited for Lewis to come to Ferrari, because ultimately, like I have put myself in Charles's camp. So I'm like, no, I have to root against Lewis. Like, oh,
I think people will be mad at us for not putting Max number 1, but here's my honest truth. Charles has the limited time that we saw Charles in similar machinery to Max Verstappen, he kicked his ass. Beat him in Bahrain, was going to beat him in Australia even before the DNF. Was kicking his ass in Spain. We have all forgotten that because 2022 Spain, it's the George Max fight, and it's Max swearing about his fucking DRS. Charles was like 8 seconds out in front during that race before his engine blew up. Let's be very clear about what that race was. Baku, Charles was absolutely going to win that race before his engine blew up. And then the Ferrari just completely fell apart. And the thing is, Christian Horner would never say that Charles was the better driver, but think about the way Horner talked to Stefano Domenicali, which was caught on Drive to Survive from that season. Ferrari fucked up. The wrong driver won. There is an understanding that Charles is a max level driver who has just never been given a max level car. And the fact that Charles dragged a Ferrari that none of us at any point were really talking about as a championship winning car to nearly the Constructors' Championship, the drive he put in Abu Dhabi, those are max level drives. Those are Lewis level. Those are prime Lewis level drives. It is incredible what Charles can achieve. And the thing is, if I needed one driver to drive one race, that becomes the question. When it comes to these two, I have one driver to drive me one race, to keep his cool during that race, which Max, famously is not always able to do. If you give me one driver and he needs to do a job, I'm picking Max. I think Charles over Max. I am. I think Charles right now is a better driver.
I think when it comes to racing, we don't have a large enough sample size to really say definitively. I think that both Max and Charles are wildly talented in that capacity. However, I think that right now, at this moment in time, Charles Leclerc is the best qualifier on the grid. And that is incredibly important. And it kind of is very Seb-esque in a way, because I think that people try to use it to that person's detriment. But like, Fernando Alonso can whine about Vitaly Petrov holding him up in Abu Dhabi 2010 all he wants. But at the end of the day, you're the one who qualified third. You know what I mean? Like, people are like Seb getting pole that much, like, is the reason he was still hanging around and able to pull a miracle off at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the thing for me with Charles is just like, he's so good, and he is I value the ability to drag a car that is not near the front to the front, which is why I tend to rate Charles and George way higher than I rate Lando, because, what is Lando's greatest dry weather, like, even qualifying performance? When is he dragged to McLaren that didn't deserve it to pole position? Literally the only time he got pole before this year and before he had the fastest car was Russia 2021, which was a rain soaked session. Like, what are we valuing here? I value the ability to drag a car from the upper midfield. I value what Charles has done in Baku for the last 4 fucking years, putting it on pole position 5 times. What he did in Monaco is incredible. The fact that he got pole position in Monaco in 2021, yes, he crashed on the second flag run, but
it was the left drive shaft, and he should have been able to go back and win that race like Sergio Perez did the very next year.
But legitimately, how the fuck in a year with the W12 and the Red Bull that year, how the fuck were you fastest after first runs in Q1 and not even particularly close?
Because that's
because he's a legend in the moment.
When it comes to Lando, I almost have the opposite opinion, because I think that Lando, when McLaren was top of the midfield, his ability to pull through and get podiums at a fairly reliable pace based on the car, built an understandable hype. And but there's a lot of people, not a lot ultimately in the long run, but comparatively to race to world champions, there's a lot of those people compared to, I think that in every moment when it has been time for Lando Norris to take that last step into the category of the race winners, the potential future world champions, to be okay, I'm at the front and it's my turn to take on Max or Lewis or whoever, and seize the moment in whatever capacity, he has flopped each and every time.
Russia, his pole rate. George, do you want to know the best stat in the F1 season?
What one?
George Russell led lap 1 after Lando Norris poles as often as Lando Norris led lap 1 after Lando Norris pole.
The lap 1 thing, it really is crazy that it just kept happening. And it's just that is very harsh, but also it's that's literally what happened and has happened. And also, fuck it, because at this point, I've already probably deeply offended any Lando Norris fans that would get offended at that, because I already rated him so low. So I don't.
No, we should give Max his flowers. He's incredible. Let's not pretend otherwise. Well, but I think the combination of the utter shit show that Red Bull is, the fact that Ferrari seem to be more competent now. I really think this is Charles' championship to lose, and I think that he's going to win it, and I think he's going to pretty handily beat the WDC.
Who's Fossey pilled now? Like, let's see if Ferrari manages to put together a good car, and then not nerf it 5 weeks in. But I am also hopeful. But yes, no, I don't. When I say that about Lando, it's like important to remember that this is in the context of Max, of Lewis, of Charles, of these people who are going to fight at the very, very front. And like Charles has not done that for an extended period of time. And to be fair, neither is Lando. But I would argue that the first half of 2022, Charles's driving performance was much more impressive than Lando's in that period. And the car situation was like actually the exact opposite. But unfortunately for Lando, I think Lando is very, very good. But what I mean, he flops every time, is when it's time to take that next step into very, very good driver to the caliber of driver that Max is, that's a different story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Lando Norris had a chance to win, his first race and completely bottled it, and then bottled Lord knows how many other chances he had to win races before he's finally, Miami is whatever. It's impressive. It was the first race with the fastest car, and it was, and he got hugely lucky with a safety car. But, probably should have won Spain. Definitely should have won Austria. Definitely should have won a bunch of these races. And he pissed them away, right? The fact that he could, that he lost pole position in Brazil to George, a must-win race for the championship. The fact that he was on pole position, got passed by George at the start, could never get him back, and then did get him back for precisely 4 seconds, and then from there went straight on at turn 1 and lost 4 places. Yeah, buddy, that's how this fucking game works. Be better.
No, and I think that all of that is incredibly correct, but for me, it all comes down to Monza and the fact that after what transpired on that first lap, the fact that Lando Norris, looking back on that race, and everybody else, to be fair, it's more other people on his behalf, are talking about Monza and being like, well, what about those 7 points and this and that? And Oscar shouldn't have dive bombed him and all of these things. It's like, why would you draw, the fact that that was the reaction and the whole throwing a tantrum on the radio after and everything, if that happened to me, that is so embarrassing. I would never talk about it ever again. I'd be like, can we just not bring that up? Because Max Verstappen, that would never happen to Lewis. It would never happen to Max. It would never happen to Charles. They would send that other person into a parallel dimension.
Think about what George did. Think about what George did in Oscar's position to Valtteri Bottas and Sakir.
There is no
There are people who got it and people who don't. Lando's one of the people who don't.
And the fact, and then to back that up with, you're about to get got by Lewis Hamilton, so the team, to do you a favor, screws Oscar with pitting where it really matters at Monza, and on the condition that you'll give it back. And then when it came time, it would have been fucked up not to give it back anyway because of the reasoning. I would have semi-defended it, but I would have been like, it's not really as cunty when you are doing it because you had to get bailed out by the team, basically.
Waiting 15 laps, being gentle, being increasing levels of gentle parented by your race engineer, giving it back, and then like quasi trying, but not really trying to get the place back organically. Like, what the fuck were you doing? Either give it back or don't. Have some balls or do it right away and then just go chase him down for the win.
Right. He did the worst of both worlds. Like, there are 4 courses of action, and 3 of them are like acceptable in terms of like what a champion would do. And the first is to really just choose to be an asshole, to stick it out, and to say, nope, like, I'm not letting him back by. I want to win the championship at all costs. I'm sorry to Oscar, it's not personal. But what he really should have done is let him back by and then fight him for it. And if you want a happy medium, you can let him by in like a cheeky way and play with the DRS or where you do it on the track so that it's easy to repass him and be like, oops, I let him back by.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I love how I was like, we should get Max his flowers, and then we decided to shut on Lando some more.
No,
do you have anything to say about Max other than he's fantastic?
Yeah, he's good. I think he'll continue to be good. I think Red Bull will be okay. Like, comparatively to people's expectations. Like, I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff, but I don't think they're going to return to their previous form.
How do we think being a dad is gonna affect Max's season?
Oh my god.
This is gonna be a talking point. It's gonna be terrible.
I don't really care about Max having a baby. I'm so sorry to that baby. I'm sure it's gonna be so cute. However, I feel like it's not going to substantially change Max Verstappen's life at all, and I'll leave it at that.
That's probably fair. Do you have a 90-second take on Lewis in red?
I love to see it, but I just want to clarify that and say it's not his life. Obviously, he's going to like love his child and stuff, but it's not like Max is exactly like a sentimental racer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's really going to.
You don't think Max is suddenly going to become a pussy?
No, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think it would affect anything because, like, also, like, you know, like, he's rich. It's not like he's going to be, like, awake at night, like, having to tend to this child. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, I was gonna say they can afford a nanny, which they absolutely can, but also, how does the nanny system work in Monaco? Given that you need to be a certain level of like. You need to have a certain amount of money to like just survive in Monaco. So do they like, is there like an outpost in France where like the nannies and the like, you know, domestic servants and like the cheap labor live that isn't Monaco that like drive in to work in Monaco?
Yeah, I feel like it must. I mean, I have no idea, but I feel like there must be either like certain like government housing or like low income housing in Monaco for that, or like probably like in the immediate surrounding area.
Like what is the New Jersey to Monaco's New York is what I'm asking.
That is an interesting question. I have no idea. Maybe Nice. It's right there.
Yeah, but is it that close? I don't know my sense of France geography well enough. I don't know.
I'm talking about things I don't understand. That was just a total guess because I know it's like semi in the vicinity.
I mean, Marseille is on the water, but again, this is showing I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about. Yeah, because it's Marseille that they go to. Is it Marseille or Nice that they go to in Casablanca? When they're in Paris and
I have no idea. I haven't watched that movie in 10 years.
Casablanca is one of my 4 favorite movies. Oh do you God. Know? I've told you my Mount Rushmore movies, right?
No, what is it?
Casablanca.
Okay.
My Cousin Vinny.
Okay.
All the President's Men.
Agree. I mean,
feel like that one is the least surprising of the 4 of them for me.
It's not my top 4, but I did enjoy that movie, so I support you in your endeavors. Continue.
But also, I'm a massive nerd, and I would also like to fuck 1976 Robert Redford.
Yeah.
But it's like a journalism movie, and like Ben Bradley's fucking incredible. Like it's an incredible movie.
That was the rare. I am not the largest fan of biopics because it's like okay, not to state this publicly because I never have, but like, it's not that I don't like Oppenheimer, but it's, to me, it's just that the process of making a nuclear bomb is not that exciting. You know what I mean? And when an hour in, we were for some reason in a Senate confirmation hearing, I was like, maybe it's just because that process to me is not.
The third hour of that movie is genuinely one of the, like, I cannot believe that movie won all of the Oscars it did with the third hour. Like, the Trinity test happens at 2 hours in, and then there's a whole other hour of the movie that did not need to be in the movie.
Well, and it's also, to me, the like moral struggle of like the use of an invention of atomic weapons, or really any weapon, but like nuclear bombs and stuff like that, is not like a revolutionary debate or idea that I've never thought about before in my entire life. You know what I mean?
And Chris Nolan has a set up his ass, which is not helpful.
I'm giving my Mount Rushmore. Hang on. Number 1, Pride and Prejudice, 2005.
I still haven't said my fourth. Why are you doing your
sorry.
Sorry. Number 4 is Jackie Brown, the Tarantino movie from the 90s.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
No, I've only seen All the President's Men of all of those.
It's Jackie Brown's so good, and it's Tarantino, and it's so good, and the delphonics and the needle drops, and Pam Grier is so good. Oh my god. Also, yeah. Okay, Prime Prejudice, cool. What's your other 3?
Number 2 is Remember the Titans. Number what?
Nothing.
You Titans?
One of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Okay, fine. I'll replace it with Miracle on Ice, though. But you're gonna hate that more because it's just U.S. propaganda. But it's
Miracle. No, the thing about Miracle on Ice is that I saw Miracle on Ice the only time I've ever seen it at a young enough age that I was like, hockey. Oh my god. And didn't like think critically about any of the movie, so I still have positive associations with it.
Listen, I talk about America's low points a lot. I think beating the Russians in that hockey game, it was symbolic. It was beautiful.
Yeah, the problem with the Miracle on Ice is that was a semifinal, and like they
say that in the you clearly are as familiar with the film.
No, I am familiar with hockey history. Okay.
No, listen, don't get me wrong. Is that movie
by the 80s, like Turchek wasn't as good. Like beating the 80 team is not nearly as impressive as the Americans want to pretend it is. Don't make me talk about the don't make me do you know what the 1972 Summit Series is?
No, I don't know. I am not listen, I don't know anything about the intricacies of international ice hockey. I do
well, winning the 72 Summit Series is way more impressive than the fucking Miracle on Ice. Anyways, what's your
I'm sorry to discount the great nation of Canada in that movie selection, but it is I also like, to be fair, I have like watched that movie ever since I was like a kid, and like I played hockey.
Yeah. Sentimental nostalgia. We get it. It's fine.
Number 3 is Mamma Mia, which I will die on that hill. Like I fucking love. It's the best movie ever made, potentially. No, Pride and Prejudice is better, but
I am the wrong kind of gay person to love Mamma Mia.
Well, it's okay. Everyone's allowed to be wrong about some things. It's just fun. It's I guess real life is so horrible and sad that I don't like to consume horrible and sad movies. And obviously there are so many exceptions to that. Like there's plenty of things I like to watch that are depressing as hell. But I think
you're a Ferrari fan.
True. But ultimately I think that's why I love Mamma Mia so much, is because it's just fun. You know what I mean? I
just don't like the music of ABBA enough. That's my problem. But like I like it. I understand it as a movie and I like it as a movie. I just don't like ABBA enough. What's number and then what's your 4th?
This one's maybe a little bit harder to pick from. I want to pick like a rom-com because like I love a silly like early 2000s 90s rom-com, but it's so hard to pick my favorite. I think a controversial pick, because there are so many great like 10 Things I Hate About You is such a classic. It's that, but I have to give it to Letters to Juliet, because there's something about it I just love it so much. Something about that movie. And I don't think like nobody has ever seen it. It's this like random rom-com that Amanda Seyfried did in 2005. And I just watched it because it was her. And it's like my favorite movie ever. It makes me so happy every single time. And it's very heavy-handed in its Romeo and Juliet references, even though Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. But I don't care, because it's sweet and silly and romantic.
I'm a big How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days person. But also if my girlfriend tried to do what she did to Matthew McConaughey at that next game, I think I would. I think it would not be good, is what I'm gonna say.
I don't think I could physically either bring myself to do that, no matter the circumstance, or like how about this, girly pop? I would just lie. I would make up the story. I would invent something. I would be a writer. But because I just personally don't think I could do it, especially if I like ended up liking the person. But I also like day one, I would have never spoken to them again, unfortunately. It's such a good movie. However, the reason Letters to Juliet trumps it is because ultimately I would like to go on a random vacation to Italy and make friends with a group of older Italian women who cook for me, and then fall in love with a handsome, wealthy British man with a nice grandmother. That would be an ideal situation. So
yeah, I mean it's a certain position. Very, very quickly, I have a question for you about Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively. The Justin Baldoni seems to be quote unquote winning the war of public opinion, despite a very interesting strategy, which is he was accused of sexual harassment, and he is talking about a whole lot of things that are not whether or not he sexually harassed Blake Lively, and his quote unquote response or proof or whatever in no way actually invalidates the idea that he sexually harassed Blake Lively. And it feels extremely weird to me that the number of people are being like, oh my God, he's winning this. It's like, okay, so she looks like an asshole, and Ryan Reynolds looks like an asshole, and she seems to have a very weird opinion of her power dynamic vis-a-vis Taylor Swift if she thinks that she is Khaleesi and Taylor is one of the dragons, when it's very clearly not that. But Blake Lively being an asshole and Justin Baldoni being a creep are not mutually exclusive, and I don't understand any of the coverage of this.
Yeah, I am incredibly frustrated with this situation because, like you said, like all of these, first of all, in terms of like outside of like the legal lawsuits of it all, like everyone wants to talk about everything about Blake Lively. And it's like, it really doesn't matter if Blake Lively is weird and potentially a bad person, potentially probably a little bit of a bad person, but like, she could be Satan incarnate. It doesn't mean you get to sexually harass her. And also, I would remind people that the lawsuit is not just about her. There were other people like that he also allegedly harassed as well. And even in his countersuit, which to be fair, I haven't read the legal document itself, but I read like actual news articles on it, and which are obviously not infallible either. But from the evidence that he appears to have introduced really in most cases does not directly counteract the claim that she is making. Like, it's just like, for example, there's one where it was like, oh, he would walk into her trailer all the time unannounced without knocking, and like sometimes she was changing, sometimes she was breastfeeding in there, and he, in the court case, there's like, he puts text messages of like literally one text exchange where he's like, that's after he supposedly signed this agreement to like get her to continue to do the movie or whatever, that he's like, oh, hey, like, could I come into your trailer? And she's like, yeah, I'm pumping, but it's fine. And it's like, okay, first of all, breastfeeding and pumping are two completely separate things. One involves a live human child, and the other is like a contraption. I mean, I don't know. I've never had a kid, but it's like a suction cup, basically, from what I understand. And one of those you can put under your shirt, and one of them you can't because it's a live human baby. And also, like, him walking in unannounced all the time, just because she said you could come in one time while she was pumping, regardless of the timeline, that doesn't mean you get to walk in unannounced whenever you want into a trailer where the express intention of these is that you're changing in there.
Yeah, it's just it's completely nonsensical, and it's wild to me that people who this is a legal proceeding, right? One, that we looked at what happened with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, where Amber Heard, who is probably a lunatic, I don't even disagree with it, got a winning verdict in a U.S. court for defamation when she didn't even say his fucking name. Like, the fact that we look at that and go, so if we just start smearing the woman, that's good enough. We're just going to let that happen again. Like, I don't like Blake Lively too. I kind of want to be anti Blake Lively because fuck Ryan Reynolds, but like the number of people who are conflating all of this other crap to suggest that like, oh, Blake Lively is losing or whatever. It's like, this is all ephemera to her actual point.
But this isn't like, what makes me so mad about it, why I get so passionate and like it upsets me so much, is not because I feel the need to ride for Blake Lively because I feel really any affinity toward her at all. You know what I mean? But it's the fact that like, not only is it like, number one, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, you shouldn't like have that happen to you. You know what I mean? And like, maybe he really could have come out of it. Like, if he did do the things he did, if he hadn't done them, maybe he could have come out of this looking like the good guy because she and Ryan are crazy. But like, and like what happens every single time to like completely smear this person is it like, who's watching that? The millions of people, predominantly women around the world, that are watching this who have also had fucked up shit happen to them and who don't have anywhere close to the resources or social capital that Blake Lively does, are watching this happen to her and are like, that's gonna fucking happen to me. And the worst part is that it is gonna happen to them, and it happens every time. It doesn't matter that Johnny Depp was indicted on 6 counts of domestic violence in the UK. Amber Heard lied about the makeup that she literally, it upsets me so much, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that as I try and like remember stories from like a similar period of time back to what she was retelling in that trial, it's like the number of details that I am unsure of, or just the number of times I'm recording this podcast, either an F1 podcast with you or politics podcasts with, I had David Coletto on, CEO of Advocates Data, or just buddies of mine or whatever. It's like, I've forgotten names of like senior politicians on podcasts before, right? I've forgotten who led the Conservatives into the last election before. I've forgotten the names of U.S. states when we're recording with Jakubowski. Like, sometimes you forget details and sometimes you don't, or sometimes you have to take a minute to remember a detail because it just escapes your brain. And it's like, when it's me being like, fuck, what's his name? Oh yeah, Valtteri Bottas or whatever. It's like funny, quirky, whatever. But it's like, we just, a lot of, it's just fucking aggravating that we're doing this for a guy, Justin Baldoni, who does not particularly seem like he deserves the benefit of the doubt. And I think, frankly, there are a lot of men in Hollywood who people are willing to give a benefit of the doubt to that they're not willing to give to women. And I'm not saying Blake Lively deserves the benefit of the doubt. I just don't understand why Justin Baldoni deserves it.
I think, and like, listen, let's let it play out, because one thing that I do have hope for is that, fortunately, in this position, whatever you think of Blake Lively, she does have the resources to have the best lawyers and to fight this. And it seems like she has a lot of documentation, and we'll see. I mean, I'm sure he can also afford, his own lawyers, and it will go.
He can afford to buy out Colleen Hoover's book rights, so like.
But the unfortunate thing is he is running this play that is unfortunately very common now, which is because the court system takes 527 years to find a paperclip. They, until then, can engage in this war in the court of public opinion, which is all fun and games when we're beefing over it. It shouldn't be treated like people not liking each other or like think more. It's just like, this is like workplace harassment. It's like pretty serious. And
yeah, this is not a celebrity divorce. This is not Bennifer 2.0.
And exactly, like, this isn't like, right. And so I just think that actively engaging in conversation about, I'm not criticize Blake Lively, fine, but to not be able to, I don't really disagree with any of the talking points. You know what I mean?
If you can't tell that you're being played with if you can't figure out that none of Baldoni's points are actually material to her complaints, you're an idiot.
Right. Take a step back and think about the fact that one day, I remember seeing this one specific tweet that was I don't know why, but for some reason, it was worded in a funny way, but it was basically I hate, Blake Lively's always bothered me, bringing my, whatever. And it felt out of nowhere, really more so than any, because this will happen from time to time, but usually it's with J-Lo, it was spawned by her documentary. But because the press tour happened and people talked about that, but then it died down for a long time. And then one day out of nowhere, everybody in the world was talking about and having an opinion on and going back and forth on Blake Lively. And no hate to her, but it's when was the last time we all talked? You know what I mean? Every once in a while you hear about her.
She's a B-list actress.
Right.
On her own merit, she's a B-lister.
Maybe take a step back and be this is very clearly a smear campaign, and it's kind of, like you said, immaterial to whether or not there was workplace harassment on that set. Which maybe there wasn't. Maybe this is all a giant conspiracy, but
but he hasn't but the thing is, he hasn't proved that none of what he's done is actually proven the point. It's all it's done is just made people think she's an asshole, and she's an asshole, but assholes can also get sexually harassed. I think at this point we would just be repeating ourselves. I've taken up far too much of your time. Yeah. Thank you very much, Formula Whatever, for coming on the podcast. Formula Whatever on Twitter and TikTok, Formula_whatever on the Instagrams, YouTube Formula Whatever. Follow you at all of the relevant places.
Yes. Thank you.
Addie Scrimshaw, yada yada. Political writing, Scrimshaw Scripted.substack.com. I'll figure something out for sports. Your fuck, marry, kill at the end.
Oh my god, yes.
Patrick Mahomes, Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce.
Oh, I don't really want to fuck any of them, to be honest. I guess I would have to. I'm so sorry to Patrick Mahomes, but I would have to kill him just because I can't do the Jesus thing. You know what I mean? I don't you would have to. I can't do it. I feel that's and I love that for him, but like not for myself. And so I feel like that wouldn't work at all. It's kind of like whenever these things come up with Lewis, it's like, unfortunately, I can't be a vegan. So like, I don't know if I can, but
Yeah.
I think I would marry, I would marry Travis Kelce and fuck Jason Kelce.
Oh no, I think there is I think it's Kilpatrick. You fuck Travis, but Jason, I think is the one you marry. I think it's very clear to me.
No, he has the energy that I like in a man, which is
Travis Kelce probably has an IQ of 12. Jason Kelce at least managed to marry Kylie Kelce, and I think Kylie would not date a true idiot.
Jason Kelce's an idiot at all. They're both would be fine to marry, to be honest with you. I just personally find Travis Kelce, to be fair, it is a little bit of like the Danny Rick effect of like, I do think that his like extroverted, like goofy, like that, I think it would wear on me after a while because I am a more dry person. However, I think he's also hot as fuck. So I think I genuinely think that it wouldn't give me the ick because he's so hot.
Last question, 30 seconds, and then I actually need to GTFO. Is Taylor announcing something at the Grammys?
I just enjoy what Taylor decides to bring us when she decides to bring it to us, because I checked out some time ago. I can't keep getting my hopes up. And I know she's gonna, like, Taylor Swift. One thing about Taylor Swift is she's gonna write some music. So like, I don't think she's gonna go away forever. All in good time. You know what I mean? I hope so. That'd be awesome.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, she's got to announce the last two re-records soon before she. It just makes a lot of sense to release those this year while she's doing other things, and then come back for a full album next year.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say. I think that I saw something that was like the copyright on like whatever it was, the trademark for the whatever that they put in expires at the end of this year, and this was like the final extension. And yeah, I do think it makes sense. If I had to predict, I would predict that Taylor Swift goes, I'm gonna say a little bit under the radar, which is silly because Taylor Swift can never go like truly under the radar, you know what I mean? But I think she'll release the last two. And what order do you think they're gonna be in? I know you're not a big Taylor gal.
It makes absolutely no sense. So Debut is going to be a much smaller album than Rep. It makes no sense to end on Debut. So I would do Debut in the spring. I would do Rep. In the fall. She doesn't really have to do a lot of press for either for re-records in a general sense. I would just do those this year. She can sort of reset. She can regroup. Do a little bit of press for Rep in the fall while she's going to Travis's football games, assuming they're still dating or together or whatever. And then fall 2026, she's back on her normal album cycle or something close to it.
I also agree because number one, I agree that it makes sense to end with Reputation, because it's the stronger album, in my opinion. I mean, she wrote it, she was 5 years older or however, maybe more when she wrote it. I also think that just seasonally, it makes a lot more sense for for Debut to be in the spring and for Reputation to be in the fall. And I also think, but interestingly, because one very foundational fact about Taylor Swift is that she is at her heart a weird, cringe, millennial Tumblr girl. And I know this because I am one myself. I can sniff it out a mile away. So, and I do think that it's interesting because there's a funny conspiracy theory that she's the author of this one Harry Potter fan fiction. I do not think that it's the case, but once again, with Taylor Swift, like, I've stopped trying to predict truly anything. And that's what makes it funny, is that, like, it's not that it's true, it's not, but it wouldn't be that shocking if it was. You know what I mean? And someone made a tweet that was like, the last two Horcruxes that Harry Potter had to kill were himself and then the snake.
Okay, I mean it is a certain, there would be a certain symmetry, that's absolutely not true, but you know it would be hilarious.
Every once in a while I catch like the tail end of like a Taylor Swift conspiracy theory, and I'm like, you know what, I love to see that the girls are hard at work.
My TikTok algorithm has been ruined by the clowning, and it's great. Anyway, thanks for coming on.
Of course. Talk to you later.